Welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name's Patrick. I'll be your host. This is video 9 for Trumpeter's 1/200 scale USS Fletcher DD-445. Video 8, we worked on pages 5 and 6, and that included stuff like the capstan, all these ferro leads, these splinter shields here at the back, and some of the K guns. For video 9, we are going to be working off of page 7, which is the anchors and the chains, some davits, and page 8, which is our depth charge racks at the very stern and more depth charges to go alongside our K guns. So I've already got all the parts separated from the sprues. Everything's painted and ready to go in place. So I'm going to go ahead and get the pages of the instructions loaded up to kind of point out what we're doing, and then we'll get on to it. All right, so first up on page 7, you've got step 10 here, which is putting together the anchors that Trumpeter provides in the kit. I'm not using those. Of course, I'm using the HS Models anchor set for 1/200 scale for destroyers. Pretty happy with the set. They're very nicely detailed, and I've already kind of gotten those put together per the instructions for that. And then step 11, you're going to go in and put the chains down on the deck. Port side, of course, going directly to the hole for the chain locker, and the starboard side going up around the capstan, and then going into the back side of where those would go into the chain locker. The starboard anchor we're not going to actually install this time around because I'm going to be having the jack flying on part B2, which means that the ship is at anchor. Then I'm going to have the anchor on the starboard side lowered. But the one on port side, we're going to go ahead. I cut off the shank of the anchor a bit, and we're going to fit it into place. Then step 12 has you putting together, looks like a little ferro lead along with maybe a light and a little reflector that goes at the very stern. And then 10 lovely, super thin, teeny tiny little davits that'll be fun to line up. Well, let me show you the parts and we'll get to it. Okay, here are the parts right here. Anchors, one with chain already attached to it, some chain. Flagstaff that's going to be flying the jack, and I'll explain why. This right here is a ferro lead attached with what I think is a little stern light that goes at the very back end of the ship at the stern. These are the 300-pound depth charges, the racks for those. On the davits, I believe this is some equipment that goes along with the depth charges. And then these are depth charges that go amidships here on port and starboard side next to the K guns. So as you can see, everything's already been prepared and painted. So we'll go ahead and get on to getting it on the ship. So for the starboard anchor, we're not actually going to put this in place just yet because it is going to be hanging off the starboard side of the ship out of the hawse hole. That's because we're going to have the jack flying on the flagstaff up at the bow. And according to what I've read, that means the ship is at anchor. So I'm going to have this lowered just to kind of show off the beautiful resin anchor that I got from HS Models. This is not going to go on the ship just yet. It'd be certainly get broken off as soon as I went to move the ship around. So I'm going to go ahead and put it aside in a safe spot. But we do have the port anchor there, and as you can see, the shank on this is not complete. I had to break it off because what we're going to do is I'm going to take it and we're going to be able to put it right in there. And that's what it'll look like when we get it in place here. So a little bit of medium CA should get that fastened into place. Go ahead and take that off. And I got to get this ship propped up so it's on its side. So I'll be right back. Okay, so with Fletcher resting right there on our starboard side, we'll go ahead and get a little bit of medium CA glue right down in there and get this anchor in place. going to go very sparingly with this so it doesn't show up real badly after we get the anchor in place. Thank you for your patience while I get that stuff out of the way. The last thing I want is a great big CA glue accident here. All right, now I'm just going to let that set up for a couple of minutes, and then we'll turn the ship up and start working on the chains and then that flagstaff. Okay, now that we got the CA glue that's set up there, that's what the port side anchor looks like in place. And it's firmly in place, it's not moving around. So next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and start getting the chains in place here. I'm starting with the port side chain. I'll go ahead and swing this around so I can see a little bit better. And what we're going to do, I've already got a little bit of chain cut off right here. And as you can see, it is not super easy to work with, but it looks the part. So first thing we're going to do with getting this in place is put a little bit of CA glue right here to where this would go to the chain locker. And then after that, we will start feeding the chain down in here. I'm not overly concerned about gluing it in place here. The remainder of this chain should kind of hold it in place, and it'll allow us to play with it if we need to rearrange it or anything like that when we start doing painting. So I've already got a little bit of CA glue here. Just go ahead and get a little dab on the end of our toothpick. All right, put that aside. I'll go ahead and get that in there firmly. So now it looks like the actual chain is going into where it's supposed to go into the chain locker. I'll let that set up here for a few seconds here. We talk about the starboard chain here, which I've got in a very, very long piece. And so I need to make sure I get enough to go back around and again go into the chain locker. So I'm going to cut off about that much. That's probably a little bit too much, but it's okay. I've got the USS Stevens on pre-order, so if I can hold on to as much of this chain and the other two anchors, then I'll be able to use those for that particular destroyer when that comes in. So now that CA should have set up enough so I can start feeding this chain. And there we go. That is the port side chain in place. All right, so next up is going to be the starboard side chain. And again, we're going to do the same thing here, but we're going to start from the back side. And again, I should just be able to kind of wedge this in there. That is if the tweezers and chain will cooperate with me. All right, be right back. Okay, well, I had to do that one off camera. I just simply could not see from without being right over top of it exactly how I was going. Plus, it just did not want to cooperate really well around some of these other bits here. But I'll give you a close up of. Just wait. There we go. A little bit of focus. As you can see, the starboard chain wraps around the capstan, and the port side does not. And from the pictures I saw, that is pretty much the correct way. Not the way Trumpeter would have you do it. We'll go ahead next, and this is the flagstaff that goes on the bow. In order to make this a little bit easier for placement, I drilled a tiny little hole in this fair lead up front. And that'll fit in there just like that with a little bit of extra thin. I shouldn't have any trouble holding on. But again, I'm going to go ahead and get this in place off camera here, just so I'm able to be right here rather than at arm's length. Okay, and that is all there is for the fore part of the ship here on page 7. The rest of page 7 is going to move to the aft half of the ship and the stern. And that deals with a bunch of these teeny tiny little davits. And thank you for bearing with me. I'll get these situated here. These right here, for the most part, are going to go right into spots like that. And they're going to stand up like that. I'm going to have some here. And it looks like these were just in place to help with the loading of the depth charges. So we've got 3 on each side up here. And we've got a total of 4 back here. There's 2 that go right here. And a couple more that go right over right here. I'm just got to re-drill the hole so that these will fit down in place. I'm going to go ahead and get that done. I'll get these in place, show you what it looks like afterwards. Okay, so we got all 10 davits in place. They are not perfect by any means, and the parts are just so fiddly. Sometimes it's very difficult to get them lined up, and they're super thin and fragile. So I would not be surprised if I end up breaking a couple of them off before the end of this build. I will do my best not to, though. But yeah, as you can see, 3 starboard, 3 port. We got 4 aft here. So the last part of page 7 now is putting a fair lead with what looks to be like a little stern light right here. This is what it looks like. And it's comprised of 3 pieces, 2 plastic and 1 photo etch. There's not really a whole lot of detail. I'd imagine you could go in there with a little tiny pinpoint brush and try to hit the light bulb, but I think in the end you wouldn't see it, and you could end up making a bigger mess just by trying to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little extra thin down here. I've already scratched out a little bit of the paint right there where it's going to go. All right, that looks good in place. I'm going to let that set up, and then we will turn the page to page 8. On to page 8 here, step 14 has you putting together the port side depth charge rack. Step 15, starboard side depth charge rack. Step 16 looks like you're putting together some canisters. I think those are in support of the depth charge racks. I don't know what they are, honestly. Possibly charges to help those depth charges shoot off the back of the stern. And then step 17 has you putting those assemblies down in addition to 18 depth charges on the port and starboard side of midships. So go ahead and show you what I've got, and we'll get started. Okay, so with page 8 as the stern depth charge racks, here's one with the one of the racks with the depth charges in it. And here's what it looks like without the depth charges in it. These were a royal pain. Very, very fiddly parts. And the depth charges almost don't fit in there. And it seems to me that what Trumpeter would have you do is assemble these with the depth charges in them at the same time as the racks. But the problem is if you're going to paint the depth charges a different color, that's going to be very, very difficult if they're already nestled inside these racks. So as you can see, I'm even having a difficult time getting these to seat in there properly. But there we go. Once you get it started, then you just kind of have to push it into place. Now this one here is the step 15 on page 8. So it goes on to the starboard side of the stern. And the fit here is not spectacular. So on the real deal, these two pieces right here would hang over the stern and would be attached to the stern. And unfortunately, it was just not engineered well enough fit-wise for that to happen here. So we'll just kind of fake it till we make, or until we don't make it, right? But that's what they'll look like in place. I'm going to go ahead and get those aside, actually, so I can show you the other parts here that go on here. And I think what they are some kind of canister that go right inside those depth charge racks. So one, it starts with a kind of like a ramp, and it's made out of photo etch. And they'll go right there. And then I've got these canisters. And I'm trying to get these canisters so that the sprue attachment side faced inward, not outward. Oops. As you can see, again, very, very fiddly. All right, so for Pete's sake. Here we go. Now, these will look like that when they're all said and done. Again, needless to say, these parts are so tiny, I'm probably going to do this off camera again so I can show you the finished result and be happy with the work that I've done. So go ahead and get those first, and then we'll move on to the depth charge racks. Be right back. Okay, I got those back racks installed. That is what it looks like up close. And so the next step here is going to be putting in these depth charge racks. And they will go right here. And this one right here. I think we're going to, again, go with some thick CA glue. And probably just put it on the legs right on the inside of these, not on the outside, since it wouldn't be so visible on the inside as it would have been on the outside if we made a mistake or something like that. So again, because my head's going to be right here, I'm going to go ahead and take this off camera. Be right back here when that's done. Okay, and now those two depth charge racks are on and looking pretty good. I wish the fit was just a touch better, but otherwise pretty happy with it. All right, so that leaves us to the last bit of page 8, and that concerns these teeny tiny little depth charges that go to the K-guns. And there are a total of 18 of these to put in place. And they go to these remaining holes here on the ship. And just put a little glue on the holes and pop them right in. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, take it off camera here because it's going to be a little tedious getting everything lined up. And we'll be right back when that's all complete. So you can have a look at what it looks like with everything completed up to this point. All right, they're all installed. That does it for pages 7 and 8. These depth charges were easily one of the more tedious parts of this build so far. Just trying to get them all in there in the holes, lined up properly without scratching the paint with these tiny little tweezers, making sure that the glue is not going all over the place. But so far, so good. Very happy with where we're at so far. To take a look at what we're doing next, I have to move into page 9 right here, where it looks like we're going to start working on the superstructure. We've got this part right here that's going to eventually end up right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all painted up, fit it out with its railings and everything like that, and get that stuff in place. Additionally, we're going to have to make 6 of these 20 millimeter Oerlikon cannons. Luckily, because I'm doing the USS Yorktown before she was actually fitted with those, in the Ponto set, I got plenty of Oerlikon cannons. And since I won't be needing them for Yorktown, I don't have any problem liberating 6 or 7 of them from this sheet of photo etch and from this little baggie of the barrels and pedestals in order to give ourselves a little bit more of a detailed representation of what those 20 millimeters would actually look like versus what comes in the kit. But we will talk about that in our next video here when we start getting all of that completed and work done. So as always, if you've got any comments, questions, concerns, opinions, any suggestions on what I can do better, please feel free to leave that feedback for me in the comments section below. And until next time, stay safe, happy modeling.